What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Drop, presented by Discover. I'm Arda Öcal. He's Greg Wyshynski in Edmonton. He has been in Edmonton for games 1 and 2. We are here after every single Stanley Cup Final game. And I agree with JJ Watt on social media. Nothing beats the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially these first 2 games of this series.
Yeah, I feel like I've now been in Edmonton for a month based on how long that game felt. Not because it went into double overtime, just because of how epic the whole thing was. I was talking to Nate Schmidt after the game, Florida Panthers defenseman, and I was asking him how crazy was that first period, and he had to pause and think for a second about the first period because it happened so long ago in the parlance of this game. It was everything you wanted out of a playoff game in the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, it was chaotic and brutal and thrilling. It had offense, it had goaltending, and ultimately, Arda, it had a heroic moment for one Mr. Brad Marchand, not only in the breakaway shorthanded goal that he scored in regulation, but then obviously in the breakaway game-winning goal that he scored in double overtime.
Let's see both of those goals in our highlights to catch you up exactly how we got to this moment. Brad Marchand and the Florida Panthers, Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. Oilers lead the series 1-0. It was a heck of a first period. Tied at 2 with 7 and change to go in the first. Watch McDavid. Are you kidding me? Some McJesus McMagic to Leon Draisaitl. Those two connect yet again. McDavid completely fakes out Sasha Barkov, then breaks both of Aaron Ekblad's ankles to pass it to Leon Draisaitl for his 10th goal of the playoffs. But just watch this again from a different angle. Unbelievable Connor McDavid, sublime as always. He seems to do this multiple times a game. Then in the second period, we are tied at 3. Brad Marchand, mentioned it, shorthanded, breakaway, beat Stuart Skinner, yelling, "Rah!" Marchand is fired up. His team is fired up as they take their first lead of the game, 4-3 in the second period. There's another angle. He's behind all of the Oilers players. Then late in the third period, guess who gets the puck on his stick between the hash marks? Scory Perry. 17.8 seconds to go in the final frame. The latest tying goal in Stanley Cup Final history. And once again, this series, this game is going to overtime. And then it's Brad Marchand again in double overtime. The hero, the game winner. This series is tied at 1. Brad Marchand, another breakaway, gets it through somehow. Don't quite see if he gets the backhand through Skinner's legs, but it doesn't matter. The puck crosses the line. Brad Marchand gets the goal, and Roberto Luongo says he's his favorite player of all time, which is hilarious.
Well, let's break down a short history of Brad Marchand and shorthanded goals and breakaway goals. Okay, from the shorthanded goal perspective, this is why you have to believe that there are hockey gods. You just have to. Because 14 years ago to the day, Brad Marchand scored a shorthanded goal for the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup Final against the Vancouver Canucks. Who was the goalie in that game? The aforementioned Roberto Luongo, who is now a hockey operations executive for the Florida Panthers, the team on which Brad Marchand now plays. Let's also talk about breakaway goals, Arda. Please recall 2023, when the Florida Panthers faced the Boston Bruins in the first round of the playoffs. A Boston Bruins team that, let's remember, was the single greatest regular season team in NHL history. There was a moment in that series that could have turned things in favor of the Boston Bruins and put away the upstart underdog Florida Panthers. It was a Brad Marchand breakaway on Sergei Bobrovsky, and he didn't score. And to this day, he talks about that moment as, man, if I had only had that goal, we could have staved off the upset and maybe prolonged the contention window of the Bruins. And now today, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, this man with Sergei Bobrovsky over his shoulder, watching him skating on Stuart Skinner, scores on the breakaway not once, but twice to even the series at 1.
Absolutely remarkable, and you are correct. Hockey gods do exist. 10th career goal in the Stanley Cup Final for Brad Marchand, most among active players. What else were some of your takeaways from Game 2, Wish?
I mentioned the first period. That was one of the craziest first periods I've ever seen, like in the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, we had a bunch of goals, we had a bunch of penalties, we had some brutality, we had 4-on-4 special teams play. It wasn't always pretty with how many somewhat ticky-tacky stuff was being called, I thought, in the first period, but it made for some really dramatic hockey, and I think it set this thing off in the right direction, obviously with a bunch of goals being scored. The Panthers own the second period again like they did in Game 1. The Oilers rally in the third period again like they did in Game 1. And, this is what we talked about this in the last episode of The Drop. This is why the Bruins, why am I seeing Bruins all the time? Why the Panthers did not panic after the first game of the series, which is that, it's an overtime goal that Draisaitl scores. It could be one bounce one way, one bounce another way. And tonight the Panthers got the bounces. I'll say this, one thing I found out in doing some reporting after the game that I thought was interesting. The Panthers all talked about how oddly calm they were. They were loosey-goosey after Perry scored that game-tying goal in the third period. They're a fun-loving group to begin with, but even Matthew Tkachuk was a little surprised how fun they were in the first intermission before the first overtime. And they did something that I honestly had not heard before from an NHL team, Arda. They apparently went around the room and all said who they thought on their team was going to score the game-winning goal. Which, that is the epitome of being loosey-goosey and not really being in your heads about giving up the lead and potentially being down 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Final. Tkachuk said he imagined that a bunch of people did say Marchand. Nate Schmidt said he, I think, picked Sasha Barkov to score the goal. But it goes to show you they were in the right mindset in this game and eventually persevered in double overtime.
So first of all, I'm certain they weren't playing official Bucci overtime challenge rules because there's no way they're picking an Oilers player to score. We just saw the Brad Marchand near miss there. He hit the post before he actually scored. I think that was in the first overtime. And that's where I was thinking, man, hockey gods exist, but in favor of Edmonton, because at that point, Florida had a lot of great chances, but either Stuart Skinner was making saves or they just couldn't beat the post or whatever the case may be. And so I honestly thought it really felt like momentum was going to be, the Oilers are going to get one chance and then they go and score. But now we know, of course, that it was Brad Marchand with the overtime heroics, the overtime winner. I want to ask you actually about Sam Bennett, because we had ourselves another Sam Bennett type game, right? He has this completely suspect kind of greasy play, as he is known, in front of the goaltender, Stuart Skinner. There falls on him. Skinner appears to be hurt. He stays in the game. This is not the first time something like this has happened this postseason with Sam Bennett. And then he ends up getting on the score sheet. That's almost the Sam Bennett playbook. What did you make of his game too?
Well, he does get on the score sheet with their first goal of the game very early in the first period, obviously. And he now, I think, set an NHL record actually with his 12th road goal of the playoffs, which is a pretty remarkable thing. That Bennett play that we just saw with Skinner, he talked about it after the game, did Bennett. And, listen, he has earned not getting the benefit of the doubt from the on-ice officials in a situation like that. He is a sneaky player who tends to fall pretty quickly around the crease, a man who's very tough to take off his skates anywhere else on the ice except for in front of the crease. But I'm going to give Sam Bennett the benefit of the doubt here. on the show, because if you watch the replay, and he talked about this after the game, he does get jostled by the defenseman, but it is Skinner's leg kicking out to try to make a save that actually clips Bennett's leg and forces him to fall. So in this case, I actually think that it wasn't goalie interference. I didn't agree with the penalty call on that one. But that's not to say that Sam Bennett isn't practiced in the dark art of oopsie doopsie, I fell down to the goalie, which is something he does a lot in this league.
Yeah, and some people would say he did in game number 1. So I suppose that the pendulum swings one way or another, Wish, as it pertains to Sam Bennett, and certainly in front of the crease. I'd love to add. Go ahead, Wish. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we've talked a lot about the Panthers here, but let's give some flowers to the Oilers. I mean,
Okay.
this was going to be the game in which Florida pushed back in a pretty significant way, and they knew it. They came out, they scored within the first 2 minutes and 7 seconds of the game. Did the Panthers in the power play, and then Edmonton roared back. They had a lead after, they came back and scored 2 goals after that Bennett goal. They were battling back. We showed the McDavid play to Draisaitl. That was just an unbelievable play, in the first period. And then, of course, getting the Perry goal to tie the game. They were pushing in overtime. They couldn't really find that one moment. And Bobrovsky, by the way, we should also say was incredible. 14 saves in the 2 overtimes for Florida. The Panthers after the game were to a man praising Bob's efforts. He's always a guy that doesn't really have like the most sterling stats at the end of some of these games. I mean, he made 42 saves, I think it was at the end of the game, and you look at his save percentage now in the playoffs, and it's not something that blows you away. But when they need him, he's there. Is kind of what the Panthers will tell you. But the Oil pushed, and they played well, and they almost came back for an 8th time in these playoffs to rally for a victory. I think they can hold their heads high, but this is going to be the first huge test of, is it different this time? They were all talking about on Edmonton, being more comfortable, being in the right mindset, knowing what's coming at them, not being overwhelmed by the moment. Well, now you're going to Florida, and it's a 1-1 series, and it could be 2-0 if things went well in game 2. And this is going to be the first real psychological test I think the Oilers have faced, not only in this series, but you could argue in the entirety of the 2025 playoffs.
That's funny because I feel like they've already proven through the first 2 games that their mindset is different. Like they had 2 comebacks, right? They tied the game with 17 seconds to go. They didn't quit. They lost in double overtime. I feel like I hear what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing. I guess what I'm thinking is, I think their headspace is a lot better than we might give them credit for already. I think they've shown that. They've given me enough of a sample size in games 1 and 2 that I firmly believe that they will not be in jeopardy for the rest of this series. This series every game could go to overtime. I wouldn't be surprised. And I think the Oilers will hold up their end of the bargain. I don't think they're going to wilt. I don't think their mental game is going to weaken at all. I think they still have their eye on the prize, and I think that they've shown us through games 1 and 2. Yeah, they lost game 2, but that doesn't mean to me at all that they're fragile going back to Sunrise.
They lost the first 2 games against Los Angeles, but it's the Kings. They've beaten the Kings. They know they could beat the Kings. They had that moment in the Vegas series where Riley Smith scores that goal extremely late in order to win that game, but they kind of knew where that series was headed. The Panthers beat them last year, and now they've taken home ice from them. And it's pretty clear they're not going away either. And I tend to agree with you. I think the Oilers have shown that they're ready for the moment, and they've got the right mindset, and they're not backing down. I mean, look what they did. I mean, the Perry goal set a record for the latest game-tying goal in a Stanley Cup Final game. Game 3 is a show-me game for me. I don't disagree that they're a different team. They're saying all the right things, but this could be a momentum shifter, I think, for the way that this game went for the Panthers.
You can take a victory lap if the Panthers win 5-0 in game 3. I'll just sit here silent.
I can't imagine it's gonna be 5-0, but I mean, this is. Let's be honest, man. This should be 2-0. They had every opportunity today to make it 2-0. I thought that they were really giving the Panthers too much space, especially in the neutral zone. The Panthers got real smart with the way that they were handling the puck. Evan Rodriguez said something before the game that I thought was salient, which is that they were punting the puck too much in game one. You look at all the icings that they had in game one in regulation, and it kind of speaks to how sloppy they were. And sometimes it was out of panic, and sometimes it was trying to send the puck down ice and somebody not touching it past the red line to ensure it wasn't icing. They were really breaking out well. They were making better plays in the neutral zone. And I thought that the Oilers gave them too much ice tonight, to be honest with you, offensively for some of these lines. And obviously, when you give up 2 breakaway goals and could have been 4 with what Reinhart and Marchand also did in overtime, that goes to show you that you're allowing a little bit too much to your opponent, and I think the Oilers do have to tighten that up for Game 3.
Solid goaltending as well. Sergei Bobrovsky, to your point, 42 saves for the second straight game. He's the 5th goalie to record 40 saves in back-to-back Stanley Cup Final games in NHL history. All right, Justin, roll winners and losers. Time for winners and losers. It's time for winners and losers presented by Discover. I'll start things off with a winner. A winner, first periods. It was awesome. It was entertaining. If I were to show a new hockey fan a period of hockey that I wanted to hook them with, the first period of this game would certainly be in that conversation. I would say, watch this and tell me you don't love hockey or can fall in love with it. We had everything. We had a highlight reel goal like that, what we saw with McDavid. We saw penalties. We saw goals. We saw hits. We saw it. It just had everything that we want as a hockey fan. It was great.
Five goals, controversy, physicality, star players doing star player things. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was on the Reddit of a popular podcast that doesn't always cover hockey during the game, and there were multiple posts saying, if you're not watching the Stanley Cup Final right now, what are you even doing? Like, it is that kind of Four Nations moment, for lack of a better comparison, where the normies out there who don't necessarily sit down to watch a hockey game on a Friday night are being told, you best tune in because you're missing something great. Loser for me is the refs, though. I mean, they did contribute to the chaos of the first period, but you know what? Some of these calls tonight probably shouldn't have happened. Guys falling down that are called trips and roughing calls that shouldn't be called, and the Bennett thing we talked about before. There was a blatant too many men on the ice penalty that they missed in overtime that could have given the Oilers a power play, and we saw what they did on the power play in the overtime in game one. So not a banner night for the officials. Some specious icing call. I don't know, man. It wasn't their best moments in game two.
Fair enough, but still, all in all, entertaining nonetheless, overall, outside of what you just mentioned there. You go ahead and take this well-deserved winner. I'd like to take the two after this.
Sure. Sean Monahan winning the Masterton Trophy. Of course, that is for perseverance in hockey. Johnny Gaudreau's wife, Meredith, surprised Sean Monahan with the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy. It's given to the player who best exemplifies the qualities of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. Well done by the NHL setting up some of these award presentations in this way, because it set up an absolutely heart-wrenching, emotional moment as Monahan is given this award by the widow of his best friend in hockey. No wrong answers for the Masterton this year. Gabe Landeskog was up for it too, but this was really an amazing moment orchestrated by the NHL.
Yeah, very well done by Steve Mayer and his team. And congratulations to Sean Monahan. Very, very well deserved. On to a loser. And I'm going to bring you in on this because you did some sleuthing on this one. Apparently, Connor McDavid has denied the look. What am I talking about? So we all know what the look is. It is Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the bench. There it is. Glancing at each other, essentially shooting lasers at everybody else on the ice, but glancing at each other as if to say, okay, sounds like we got to strap everything on our backs now and take over. They did it during game one after that disastrous third period where the Stars scored 3 power play goals and the Oilers lost game number 1. The look occurs. They didn't look back. Now, you had a chance to speak to Connor McDavid, Greg Wyshynski, and you actually asked him about said look. What did he say?
Now, he didn't really remember the look. I said that it was captured on camera. It's gone viral. But he said he didn't remember sharing that moment with Draisaitl. But he did say, in defense of you and others that are infatuated with the smoldering passion between these two teammates,
Okay.
he did say that they have developed the ability to communicate non-verbally, and that sometimes just a glance between the two of them can communicate all they need to know. So the idea that there was that non-verbal ESP-like communication between teammates in that moment, I think he supported that idea, but clearly that moment a lot more important to you, to the Tumblr community, than perhaps it was to Connor McDavid.
One word comes to mind. Lies. He knows what we're talking about. Connor, come on, man. I don't buy it one bit. He knows. He's aware. Okay. In all seriousness, I'd like to take this next winner. Mascots are awesome, and here's why. I love mascots. This is another big example. This is Logan, a young boy who is in a tough battle right now with cancer. Logan loves mascots. He put out a call to any mascots across the country, high school, college, any leagues, to send videos. Among many, the NHL mascots answered the call and sent videos of well wishes and inspiration. This is Colorado Avalanche mascot Bernie, who took it one step further. He boarded a flight to visit Logan, his twin sister Riley, his parents Rebecca and Jeff, and other family and friends at the hospital. They laughed, they played games. All that mattered in those moments was Logan being a kid and having fun with his mascot pal. Bernie, you are wonderful. You filled Logan's battling heart with absolute joy. That is wonderful. And Logan, smile and laugh to your heart's content, little buddy. We got your back. Anytime we hear stories like this, Wish, they should be amplified. We should hear about them. We should talk about them on shows like this because it matters very, very much.
Indeed, it does. Let's bring the room down for a second, though. Loser, Pete Deboer, specifically Pete Deboer's mouth. Pete Deboer was relieved of his head coaching duties with the Dallas Stars on Friday, and his post-series comments about goalie Jake Ottinger being unable to beat the Edmonton Oilers and singling him out for a series loss in which Dallas couldn't really score 2 goals in 3 games. Obviously, the goalie's fault. He was fired on Friday, and GM Jim Nill said, yeah, those comments did contribute to my thinking in making this decision, if not ultimately making the decision based on those comments. I think the decision was made because of the comments that most of the Dallas Stars I've heard expressed in their exit interviews with Nill and management regarding the coaching situation. So off goes Pete Deboer. He spoke like a man who thought he might be losing his job, and lo and behold, Arda, he lost his job.
It's a volatile turnstile, that coaching position in the National Hockey League. A bonus winner, Wish, Stanley Pups. Now, I'll be honest, I did not watch the Stanley Pup broadcast, but I am loving the creative names that the puppies were given. For example, Jake Ottinger and Tyler Tofuri. But my absolute favorite is Alexander Ovechkin.
I think I saw a Doggy Hamilton. I definitely saw a Taylor Howell of the instead of Taylor Hall. I remember being at the NHL party at the Stanley Cup Final last year, and everybody around me is just hobnobbing and drinking all of Gary Bettman's beer, and And I remember just staring at the television because I was absolutely mesmerized by the Stanley Pup and all of the player cards they had created for our canine friends. And rare Arda is the job in which I say to myself, man, I wish I could do that. Coming up with pun names for dogs based on hockey players. I mean, I might have to get my resume in order because that is an amazing gig.
We need to get you into that room without a doubt. That's going to do it for our winners and losers presented by Discover. Now, on the topic of creativity and selecting names for Stanley Pup, I wonder who chose these images for these hockey trading cards in history. That's going to bring us to hockey cards we can't believe are actually real. Why are we doing this after game 2 on the Stanley Cup Final? Because we can. And our producer, Justin Cloutier, is a brilliant guy and thinks of awesome segments like this that we love to dive into. I'm going to start things off in our top 5. So these are top 5 hockey cards we can't believe are real. Show it, because this is pretty hilarious. It's a hot dog. It says Olaf in mustard. Olaf Kolzig at number 5.
Yeah, I'll pretend this is a Ben's Chili Bowl dog, linking it up to at least some sort of DC icon. But yeah, Olaf Kolzig housing a hot dog, not what you'd expect on a hockey card. But perhaps it's that German heritage, Arda, that we all know from Olaf Kolzig. Perhaps it's it's Lederhosen, it's Oktoberfest, it's meat on a grill. It all kind of fits. It all rhymes when you think about it.
So Upper Deck, if you're listening, if you're watching this right now, we need a Dreisaitl holding a hot dog with Leon and ketchup. Is the next card that we require to complete everything. This is actually my favorite card at number 4 because this is actually during play. Like, butt to the face, man. Like look at this moment in time. And why was this selected as a card? I want to ask Kelly Rudy about this. Like, what is happening here?
I mean, obviously, it's a public service announcement for the dangers of pink eye. But it's a great. I mean, listen, like you said, it's an incredible action shot. The photographer probably caught a moment in time that he was very proud of, and the hockey card company is probably like, "Hey, we got a cool action shot." Alternatively, perhaps the people picking this are not LA Kings fans or not Kelly Rudy fans and just love the idea of him having a butt in his face on his hockey card.
Yeah. You could say it's a very cheeky screen.
You could definitely do that.
That's it. I can retire now. Number 3, talk us through this one, Wish. Pavel Bure at the beach.
At the beach, wearing rollerblades and shorts. Now, look, the 90s were a weird time, man. They were a real weird time. First of all, the idea that the rollerblade was going to be the thing that made hockey like more popular than the NBA. I mean, we'd had a moment or two. I mean, they even made a rollerblading league for a while, Arda. That's how we were so convinced that the rollerblade was going to be the breakthrough moment. Didn't really happen. Also, Upper Deck and other card companies, they got real casual in the 90s. A lot of these kind of like candid things. Here's a guy with his dog kind of candid moments. And here's Pavel Bure getting his Ken skating next to Barbie on with the rollerblades at the beach.
So this is hockey cards we can't believe are real. No, the next 2 I can't believe actually exist. You got to give us the backstory on this number 2 right here, Greg Wyshynski, because it actually indeed is a card of Greg Wyshynski. Look at that. Look at our guy.
That is correct. That is correct. So they do a series called Fans of the Game. Obviously, you guys know I'm not a fan. I'm a real journalist who does journalism. But back when I was writing the Puck Daddy blog for Yahoo, they invited me to be part of this series. And if you remember that blog, for those who remember it, the picture of me on that blog was me in sunglasses with a cigar in my mouth. And I went to the card company. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna take a bunch of pictures with sunglasses and a cigar in my mouth. I sent it to them, and they are like, we can't put you on the hockey card smoking a cigar, you psychopath. And so instead, it's me wearing a real tech boy kind of situation. A little tie, a hoodie, a jacket. I look like Silicon Valley over here. But you know what? A very rare card. Go on eBay and find out how much that card is worth, because I'll tell you, you'd be surprised that it's more than free, which is probably what you're thinking a Greg Wyshynski hockey card should be.
You look like you created a hockey tech company and just took out the vowels, like HCKY. That's what you look like in that.
I also have like a weird sort of Belichickian haircut on that card too. It's really not my best moment, but hey, it's a hockey card. What can you do? And I signed 100 of them, by the way. And luckily,
Nice.
my signature already is atrocious, so there was no downgrade in quality as we got to like card 77.
Yeah, wait a minute. Go back to that for a second, Justin. Where's the? I don't even see. Okay, there's the W. It's kind of a deformed W there.
Yeah.
And then there's like a scribble.
Well, there's a G, and then there's like my last name. I mean, the whole thing looks like a cardiogram. You're right. I mean, it's not a great signature.
At least your heart's ticking.
It's not like I ever practiced my signature as a kid, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna definitely be able to." Although I did sign somebody's autograph book today in Edmonton, which I thought was kind of an odd thing.
There you go.
And then he saw me doing a hit for our show Inside the Rink that you and I were on today. And he had me sign his autograph book, and then he took a picture with me, and I let him hold the ESPN microphone. So that's a bucket list moment, I'm sure, for some lucky Edmontonian.
See, and I'm going to tell our producer of Inside that's our show that we do before ESPN International Markets before the game, and Wish and I do a segment on that show. And that's awesome. I'll tell the producer that because he'll be very happy to hear it. I also have a card. I did get what I want. I actually was inspired by my all-time favorite card ever. Kelly Rudy actually is a 1B. This is 1A, the Mike Greer eating a pizza in the locker room. So I decided to recreate it. I want to tell Mike Greer I did this one day. If we could ever get him on the show, because I want to show him this. Because I'd like to also know, like, did he have a say in picking this picture, like, back in the day?
I don't know if they have a say, but it's pretty great. It's pretty memorable. And hey, kids, the man eating a piece of pizza on the hockey card, that's a general manager in the National Hockey League today.
Exactly.
So never give up on your dreams.
Exactly. Could be raising a Stanley Cup as GM, and it all started at humble beginnings, eating a pizza on a hockey card. All right, that's going to do it for us here on The Drop, presented by Discover. Remember, after every Stanley Cup Final game, we will be here post-game. Wish is working very hard on location. He will now be traveling to Sunrise, Florida. He's filing stories. He's talking to players. He's bringing it. He's crushing it. He's doing segments with me on Inside the Rink, and he's here with us on The Drop, of course. So, post-game, the next time you will see us is Monday for Game 3. We will be here after the game has concluded for The Drop. Any parting words, Wish?
Game 3 is where it's at, man. We're going to find out about these Oilers. We're going to find out if it's different this time. We're going to find out if Connor can elevate this team over last season's disappointment, because the Panthers are back and they're on the prowl, Arda.
Goodbye, everyone.